Good morning, students. My class 7 students. Hope you all are fine, taking good care of yourselves. Stay healthy. Okay? So, now once again, I'm here with your history lesson. The chapter which I'm going to take up today is the 6th chapter, Towns, Traders, and Craftsperson. I've already posted a preview of this chapter. Hope you have gone through that and, of course, enjoyed it. And believe me, that would give you a brief introduction about what we are going to study today. In fact, this chapter, Towns, Traders, and Craftspersons, this chapter reflects upon the types of towns we do have in India. And of course, every town has its own significance. They are pilgrim towns, pilgrimage located around there, then temple towns, then port towns, then administrative towns, and so on and so forth. Taking over to administrative centers. The town is bustling with markets selling grain, spices, cloth, and jewelry. Water supply for the town comes from wells and tanks. The perennial river, Kaveri, flows near this beautiful town. Perennial river? Yes, the river which flows round the year. The Salia weavers of Tanjavur and the nearby town of Oriyur are busy producing cloth for flags to be used in the temple festival. Fine cotton for the king and the nobility, and coarse cotton for the masses. Masses means common man. Besides the temple, there are palaces with mandapas or pavilions. Kings hold court in these mandapas, issuing orders to their subordinates. Now, temple towns. Temple towns represent a very important pattern of urbanization, the process by which cities develop. Temples were often central to the economy and society. Rulers built temples to demonstrate their devotion to various deities. Deities means gods and goddesses whosoever they worshipped. They also endowed temples with grants of land and money to carry out elaborate rituals, feed pilgrims and priests, and celebrate festivals. Pilgrims who flocked to the temples also made donations. In fact, the temple authorities used their wealth to finance trade and banking. Large number of priests, workers, artisans, traders settled near the temple to cater to its needs and those of the pilgrims. Thus grew temple towns. And before proceeding further, let me tell you that temple towns became the hub of economic activity, and gradually people started settling around the temples. Why? Because even if they were not settling, they were managing to set up a shop. Because the people whosoever were visiting these temples, they tend to buy something here and there. And at times we also do the same. When we go to visit a temple and if we find a shop around that temple, then what happens? We flock around the shop and see that if anything worth is buying there. And yes, in this clipping we can see that near the temple there are small shops where so many gift items are being sold. And we generally go to buy those things. Like if they are proficient at any particular craftsmanship, they sell those items. If it is of bamboo, if it is of shells, and so on and so forth. We have so many examples where we have found that pilgrimage centers have slowly developed into townships like Vrindavan, most of you must have visited. Then Tiruvannamalai, that is Tamil Nadu. Then, of course, Ajmer is the capital of Chauhan kings. Now, here pilgrimage centers also slowly developed into townships. What I said right now, Vrindavan and Tiruvannamalai, are examples of two such towns. Ajmer was the capital of Chauhan kings in 12th century and later became the Suba headquarters under the Mughals. It provides an excellent example of religious coexistence. Coexistence means existing together. So, who were existing together? Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti, the celebrated Sufi saint who settled there in the 12th century, attracted pilgrims from ancient times. So, Hindu and Islam religion. Now we have evidences here. A small town network. From the 8th century onwards, the subcontinent was dotted with several small towns. These probably emerged from large villages. They usually had a mandapika to which nearby villagers brought their produce to sell. They also had market streets called hat. Hat or uh, hata as it is generally written, and these are the lined shops which are lined around the streets, both side of the streets. There were streets for different kind of artisans such as potters, oil pressers, sugar makers, then toddy makers, smiths, stone masons, etc. Many traders came from far and near to these towns to buy local articles and sell products of distant places like horses, salt, camphor, saffron, betel nut, and spices like pepper. Usually, a samanta or a zamindar built a fortified palace in or near these towns. They levied taxes on traders, artisans, and articles of trade, and sometimes donated the right to collect these taxes to local temples, which had been built by themselves or by rich merchants. And these rights were recorded in inscriptions that have survived till today. Now, there were many kinds of traders, which included the Banjaras. Here, J is missing, the Banjaras. Several traders, especially horse traders, formed associations with headmen who negotiated on their behalf, with warriors who bought horses. Traders often formed caravans and guilds to protect their interests. The most famous guilds in South was Manigraman and Nanadesi. Guilds were kind of associations who were having an authority of giving recommendation for any particular thing. They traded extensively both within the peninsula and with Southeast Asia and China. Now here in the second line it is written B-A-N, J is missing, Banjaras. Okay, so there were many kinds of traders which included the Banjaras. It has been missed out in typing. Now there were also communities like the Kshatriyas and Marwari Oswal who went on to become the principal trading groups of the country. Trade was done extensively with the parts of the Red Sea, Persian Gulf, East Africa, Southeast Asia and China. The towns on the west coast were home to Arab, Persian, Chinese, Jewish and Syrian Christian traders. Spices grown in tropical climates became an important part of European cooking, and cotton cloth was very attractive, which eventually drew European traders to India. The craftspersons of Bidar were so famed for their inlay work in copper and silver that it came to be called Bidri. It was a very popular craft and we have those evidences where the objects wherein the inlay work is very intricate. The Panchalas or Vishwakarma community, consisting of goldsmiths, masons, and carpenters, were essential to the building of temples. Some aspects of cloth making, like cotton, cleaning, spinning, and dyeing, became specialized and independent craft. Masulipatnam and Surat, and a closer look at Hampi. The magnificent ruins of Hampi. Magnificent ruins because we have the remains only left. Hampi reveal a well fortified city which is located in King Krishna Tungabhadra basin, which formed the nucleus of Vijayanagar Empire, founded in 1336. Now the technique followed was to wedge them together by interlocking. So they were not using the cementing agent like mortar, and the construction of walls was not done with mortar and cementing agent, rather than they were put together as an interlocking procedure. The architecture of Hampi was distinctive. The buildings in the royal complex had splendid arches, domes, and pillared halls with niches for holding sculptures. In its heyday, in the 15th and 16th centuries, Hampi bustled with commercial and cultural activities. Temples were the hub of cultural activities, and Devdasis performed before the deity, royalty, and masses in the many pillared halls in the Virupaksh. Archaeologists have found the Mahanavami platform where the king received guests and accepted tribute from subordinate chiefs. And let me remind you that Mahanavami platform, it reminds us of the major significant celebration. Yes, this Mahanavami festival is known today as Navaratri in South, which was once upon a time being celebrated in Hampi. Surat in Gujarat was the emporium of Western trade during the Mughal period, along with Cambay and somewhat later Ahmedabad. Surat has also been called the gate to Mecca because many pilgrim ships set sail from here. Textiles of Surat were famous for their gold lace borders and had a market in West Asia, Africa, and Europe. The state built numerous rest houses to take care of needs of people from all over the world who came to the city. And there were huge banking houses of Kathiawar Seths or Mahajans. So it was quite noteworthy that Surat Hundis were honored in far off markets, as of Cairo in Egypt, Basra in Iraq, and Antwerp in Belgium. But Surat began to decline towards the end of the 17th century. And the causes, it was due to loss of markets and productivity because of Mughal Empire, control of the sea routes by the Portuguese, and competition from Bombay, where the English East India Company shifted its headquarters in 1668. But to remind you, and as well to bring to your notice, Surat is a bustling commercial center. Masulipatnam, the town of Masulipatnam or Machilipatnam, lay on the delta of Krishna River. Machilipatnam, as the word itself defines, fish port town. Dutch and East India Company attempted to control Masulipatnam as it became the most important port on the Andhra coast. The Qutub Shahi rulers of Golconda imposed royal monopolies on the sale of textiles, spices, and other items to prevent the trade passing completely into the hands of various East India companies. They were very careful about it, that it should not, the major trade, it should not pass on to other East India companies. And as the Mughal began to extend their power to Golconda, their representative Who was the representative? The governor Mir Jumla, who was also a merchant, began to play off the Dutch and English against each other. As the company traders moved to Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras, Masulipatam lost both its merchants and prosperity and declined in the course of 18th century, and today it's nothing less than a dilapidated little town. As we all know that the new company trade centers, it was felt should combine political, administrative and commercial roles, but which was not happening. Here we have a picture clipping of Masulipatam. New towns and traders. European companies used their naval power to gain control of the sea route. Sea trade activities, because we all know that sea trade was very popular. Why? Because we depended on sea merchandise because of the direction of the winds. In whichever direction the winds were blowing, we used to have the sea trade to that particular country and forced Indian traders to work as their agents. English emerged as the most successful commercial and political power in the subcontinent. Expansion of crafts of spinning, weaving, bleaching, dyeing was the result of increase in demands of goods. And as we all know, in the 16th and 17th centuries, European countries were searching for spices and textiles, which had become popular both in Europe and West Asia. And of course, English, Dutch, and French formed East India companies in order to expand their commercial activities in the East. So they now began to work on the system of advances, which meant that they had to weave cloth, which was already promised to European agents. And Indian textile designs became increasingly refined. And weavers no longer had liberty of selling their own cloth or weaving their own patterns. They had to reproduce the designs supplied to them by the company agents. They were left with no option. And the spurt and demand of goods like textiles and all, this was the main reason. Now the 18th century saw the rise of Bombay, Calcutta and Madras, which are the nodal cities today. The blacks or native traders and craftspersons were confined here, while the white rulers occupied the superior residencies of Fort St. William in Calcutta. Now the crafts and commerce underwent major changes as merchants and artisans were moved into the black towns established by the European companies within these new cities. And of course, the Fort St. William was the residence for the superior. And who were the superior? The whites. And who were the whites? Of course, the Europeans. So is it clear? So with this, we come to an end of this chapter. And more or less, I have picked up all the topics here. And as we all know that Mughals began to extend their power to Golconda, their representative, who was also a merchant, who was that? Mir Jumla. Right? Now, as we say, the Surat in Gujarat was the emporium of Western trade. What is an emporium? A place where goods from diverse products centers are bought and sold. So we find that Masulipatam was fishing in troubled waters. Why? Because it was born of contention between Dutch and English East India companies. They both wanted to have control over Masulipatam. And it became the most important port in Andhra coast. And of course, the fort at Masulipatam was built by the Dutch. So I hope you've understood the chapter. I don't think if I have left out on anything mentioning, As I said, that temples were the hub of cultural activities like temple dancers. Temple dancers were known as Devadasis. They performed before the deity. It was supposed to be a very respectable thing to be done in front of the deity. Deity means god or goddesses, whosoever they worshipped. And royalty and masses in the many pillared halls. This was a common sight in those days, and people used to watch these Devdasis dancing. And of course, in those markets activities, the commercial activities, they had also imposed certain taxes in kinds of sugar and jaggery, dye, all the very day to day commodities, which of course these taxes were collected in kind while others were collected in cash. Traders, those who sold metal goods on distillers. I mean, it went on for a pretty long time, and somehow we come to a conclusion. Perhaps it would not have been this. We could not have the economic enhancement. Although at times we get to a conclusion that this, as we read about it, that it was in a dilapidated condition, Surat. But nowadays, if you talk about it, it's the biggest hub of commercial activity. It's bustling with commercial activity, right? So things have changed with a period of time. So now it's time for assignment. Let's get on to it. Now, assignment I have given you very simple one, that is fill in the blanks. A. The Rajrajeshwara temple was built. This is given in your book itself and the module which I have taken over. The module which I have taught you right now, it is there. Built in. Now, Rajrajeshwara temple was built in. Now you have to mention the century. Ajmer is associated with a Sufi saint. You have to write the name. Hampi was the capital of the Dash Empire. Yes, the term starts with we. The Dutch established a settlement at Dash in Andhra Pradesh. What was located in Andhra Pradesh? Just now we were talking about it. It starts with M. E. Kabul and Kandahar were linked to the celebrated cotton route or silk route. Here I have given you an option. Now fill in the blanks. Still continues. F, that is the sixth one. Dash rulers of Golconda imposed royal monopolies on sale of textiles and spices. Hampi bustled with commercial and Dash activities. Then Mughal Emperor Dash annexed Golconda in 1686 and 87. Calcutta is present day Dash and Madras is present day Dash. We all know that names have changed. And black towns and cities were inhabited by, just now that was the last topic we covered, black towns and white towns. I think it won't take much time to complete these fill in the blanks. And of course, you will enjoy to do these fill in the blanks. I have not given anything which is out of this module. Yes. Still, if anybody has any doubt, you can get across to me. But believe me, it's very interesting. Even if you go through the chapter, if you don't go through the chapter, still you will be able to complete this. Dash rulers of Golconda. Very interesting. Just now I talked about Golconda. Yes or no? Yes. It had to do with the imposing the royal monopoly on sale of textile. Textile was actually, as they said, coarse cotton and then fine cotton. It had to be done for so and so. So with this, I'm through with the chapter. Hmm? Now, if you still get stuck up with the F, that is dash rulers of Golconda imposed, you would be finding it very much in this module, and it has to do something very much talked about, that is the dash rulers. It the word let me give you a clue. It starts with Q. Dash rulers, right? I have covered it in this module. So get going with the assignment, finish it, post it back, and here I am signing off. That's all from my end for now. Catch you up later. Take care, stay happy, and stay safe. Bye bye.